Hello everyone, my name is Chris Leahy and you are watching the premiere episode of R8F Farm Chronicles. I'm not really sure where these YouTube videos are going to go. Um, I just know that you got to start somewhere. So my hope for it, I think, is just to kind of journal and chronicle the growth of our farm and our homestead as we are able to make some progress. Um, and also to kind of give a little information to new homesteaders from a new homesteader perspective. Uh, we moved onto this property about a year ago. Um, Financially, owning a homestead isn't necessarily all that cheap. I know there's some people that inherit homesteads or they save up a long life savings and they're able to make a big purchase, but a lot of us just go out and get a home loan like everyone else does in the city. And you end up with those financial burdens, only you have those financial burdens times 3 acres, 5 acres, whatever it is that you have. So, I guess the reality of homesteading when you're first getting started is that sometimes in the process of chasing your dream, you end up realizing that your dream sometimes looks a little more like a nightmare. And that's okay. You just got to kind of keep hope alive. We do have about 5.5 acres on a very nice piece of property that's located in central Texas. The property came with a home. The home is old. The home has a lot of problems. The home needs a lot of repairs. The land went neglected for a lot of years, so there's a lot of trimming and a lot of cutting and a lot of overgrown cedar. And every time it rains, you end up with 12-foot tall weeds. And when both you and your wife work full-time jobs in the city with about an hour drive to work and an hour drive from work, your time gets really limited to pretty much just weekends. So what does weekend homesteading look like? Well, it looks like another 14-hour day on Saturday and a 6 to 10 hour day on Sunday, depending on what you're doing. My wife and I do have Rockin' 8 Farms kind of set up as an opportunity for us to sell like homesteading type goods, homemade, handcrafted. We're hoping to get our website and all that kind of set up soon, and right now I'm just looking for somebody to help me with that because I can actually remember the very first time that we had dial-up in a house, and while that's not necessarily an excuse, it does mean that unlike some of my children, I'm not the most technologically advanced. The kids are all real good at the social media stuff, and we're always looking for somebody to kind of just give us a little bit of a guiding hand with things like setting up websites, and then what do we even want our website to look like? There's just a lot of things that you have to think about. So in the meantime, we're just adding things very, very slowly to our homestead and keeping up with the chores as we can, and discovering things like, wow, fencing is very, very expensive. And when fences have been neglected for a long, long, long time, you end up with a lot of fencing that needs to be replaced because it's not suitable for livestock. You end up with a lot of jerry-rigged fencing. And another thing that you guys are going to notice while you watch the videos here is I am brand new to creating content. So I think I've flashed you in the face with the sun about 3 or 4 times now. You're going to notice some jiggling and some bouncing around, and the audio is probably going to suck. And I'm really hoping that as time goes on, all of this will start to get better. I'm going to walk backwards and try not to step on fall on my rear end here while I get back to a place where there's a little more shade so that I'm not flashing with the sun quite so often. So where this podcast is going to go, or not podcast, I'm sorry, where this video series is going to go, I have no idea. Like I said, I think my hopes are to share our growth opportunities with you. One of the things that was really, really exciting for us was that my mom wanted to invest a little bit of money in our farm, so she bought us the equipment to automate our gate on the front of the property. And now when we're coming home and it's pouring rain, nobody has to get out and get absolutely drenched in order to get the gate open. That was definitely one improvement that we made. We're trying to really build a lot of soil fertility here, so I try not to mow too often. You'll see me doing goofy things like dragging pallets behind my lawnmower because I'm just trying to knock everything down and kind of get it to start breaking down and working into the soil. And we do a lot of things like putting out tarps and plywood over top of weeds and just letting them start to kind of decompose underneath those tarps and underneath the plywood, and try not to do too much mowing because we are in central Texas, which means that we have 2 never-ending cycles. We're either flooding or we're in drought. So we're hoping to eventually get this soil to where it'll really retain a lot of moisture during that heavy rain season, so that it's not just drying up immediately when we get into drought seasons. And I've done a lot of studying here and a lot of studying there, and I know that when you come in and you mow the grass nice and short, it looks absolutely beautiful from a suburban lawn perspective, but it also lets the sun get right down there on the soil and start drying everything out. So we're just trying to really instill a lot of I guess you could call them permaculture practices into establishing our property and building soil fertility. And we have long-term goals. I'm not necessarily going to mention a lot of those long-term goals here, because I'd like to see some of our short-term goals start moving towards those long-term goals before we start getting any viewers or followers too excited about it. I'm not under any delusions that something like this is going to go instantly viral. I fully expect that my first video here will end up with about 4 or 5 views from close relatives that feel like they have to watch it because they love us. Let me get back here in the shade a little bit so I'm not just completely blinding you all with the sun as I walk out towards our chicken coop, because that is one other thing that we've been able to add to our homestead here recently. Is we've got 27 pullets that are all about 8 or 9 weeks old, and I was able to build the chicken coop from pretty much all recycled and reclaimed materials, things that I found around the property or things that I was able to find that people were getting rid of for free. And I look at the chicken coop and I say it is uglier than sin. But my chicken coop cost me about $60 to build, and so far it has proven to be, relatively predator safe. I mean, when I say relatively, we haven't had any losses to predators thus far. We're not free ranging the chickens yet, and I know as soon as they get out during the day, we're going to start having some hawk problems. There are hawks in the area. But all night long, between the fact that the dogs are outside and roam the property and bark at things, and then just some of the security measures that I installed in the chicken coop, we haven't had any losses yet. So here's my chicken coop, and like I said, it is not an attractive chicken coop, but it seems to do the job. We'll get a coat of paint on it eventually. Just for giggles, I decided to go ahead and install some Dutch doors on it. That was mostly for my wife's peace of mind, that she could open up a single door and take a look inside there, just in case there are any creepy crawlies in there. I'll go into a lot more detail on a future video with the chickens and with the video, or with the chicken coop itself. And as we get fencing up, I'll show you my fencing projects. And I don't want anybody to think that they're going to watch these videos and they're going to learn how to be a homesteader. In reality, and I personally think this is just as valuable. I'm hoping that I get to spend a lot of time showing y'all what not to do. I watch videos as well, and when I want to set a fence post, I watch 5 or 6 different people set a fence post, and kind of the way that looks like it's the strongest and the sturdiest, I'll go with that one, and then I'll get a fence post in and realize that I picked the wrong guy to follow. It happens. So where I learn a lot of my lessons is by learning what not to do. You kind of eventually get it right, and you really get settled in. And that's why part of homesteading that's so important, of the finding found materials, reusing things of that nature, can be so important, because obviously that's a very expensive way to learn. Do it wrong 12 times before you get it right. That can be a very expensive way to learn. But when all of your fence posts are cut from cedar branches that are on your property, all you really wasted was your time. So that's some of the things that I really kind of hope to show people as well. Is I hope you do learn a lot from me, by me being able to openly admit some of my mistakes and tell you what I would have done differently and things of that nature. Looking forward to the 2 or 3 likes that I'm going to get from those family and close friends that love me and care about me. And I'm also looking forward to the opportunity to share more information with you in the future, and share more of our guidance as R8F Farm Chronicles continues into future episodes.